Hello. It is Wednesday, October 22nd. Welcome to the Shadow at Night live stream. You know, I hear from many people, not as much anymore, but I hear from many people and have heard from many people over the years. Shadow, you do not talk enough about solutions. How do we get out of this nightmare? Well, for starters, I'm not an architect of the future. I'm not an activist. I'm simply a reporter. I'm a commenter. I'm a journalist. I tell you the things that are going on in the world so that you can make sense of them, first of all, because I understand there's a lot of information out there. And so my job, at least in my opinion, is to try and take that information and make it palatable to everybody. However, there have been times where we've had guests on the show who do talk about sustainable futures. And when I say sustainable, I'm not talking about the World Economic Forum and the UN's definition of sustainable. Sustainability, the future, 17 Sustainable Development Goals. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the actual definition of sustain. Keep it going, keep it going, keep it going until it starts to thrive. Fake it till you make it, that kind of thing. Tonight on the extension for all access members at shadowdavis.com, and you can become one at any time, by the way. And when you do sign up to become a member, I suggest you go and join the Telegram group, the Shadow at Night community on Telegram. Excellent people there. They will welcome you with open arms. All kinds of fantastic extra content there. Tonight, we will talk about parallel societies, a parallel economy in the extension. And before I go any further into the show tonight, and by the way, Bombshell came out of BC today, and this is something else that you guys might be able to work on. Remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. John Rustad has been asked to step down as the leader of the BC Conservative Party, but when it comes to a parallel society, what do you think Alberta independence is all about, if not a parallel society? Where, yeah, they exist in reality, obviously. They're not on some dimensional plane that's different vibrationally than ours, but they're spending a different currency. They're working on different rules. They have a different frame of mind, a lot of different laws, a lot of different customs in an independent Alberta, but still very similar to what we used to know in Canada before things got really crazy. What will they spend in an independent Alberta? Will it be loony, toony, or will it be a Rocky? An Albie? What if, just let's play suppose here. What if Alberta's new currency, if they do succeed in separating from Canada, what if that currency is based upon more than just some banker's wild imagination? What if it's actually based on a commodity like oil or precious metals, gold, silver, platinum? What about that? Then it would actually be worth something as opposed to nothing, this fiat currency system that we're currently in. Parallel society, but different. We're going to talk about that in the extension tonight. Again, bombshell coming out of British Columbia today. John Rustad, the leader, at least so far, the leader of the Conservative Party there, has been asked to step down by the committee that he chose, he handpicked himself. We're going to get into that in just a second. The Shadow at Night live stream is brought to you by CanadaNanoSilver.com.
Silver is amazing. It has several natural health benefits, and it's been used for hundreds of years for health and healing. That's the main reason they made silverware from silver. But seriously, this nano silver from Silverceuticals is the best and safest silver you can find. There are hundreds of studies and reports on it. I've read some of the studies myself, and it's mind-blowing. One of the things that sets Silverceuticals apart is that it washes out of your body in 24 hours. No silver buildup and no turning blue. And it won't even harm the good bacteria your body needs. It's so effective, they can use very small concentrations of silver, like 10 and 32 parts per million, and still outperform other silvers that have up to 3,000 parts per million. It's safer and more effective at the same time. It is an incredibly small particle that is small enough to work through your body, but big enough not to fall out of suspension. They infuse it into almost all of their products. It works in facial serums, toothpaste, gels, and even gummies that work to help your immune system.
Oh, yes, the Saskatoon Health and Wellness Show, not this coming weekend. It's the following weekend, November 1st and 2nd. I've just been informed by Kevin from Canada Nano Silver, and they will be there. We thought that it was this coming weekend. Turns out that it is the following weekend. So Canada Nano Silver will be there. If you want free tickets, info at CanadaNanoSilver.com. I urge you to go and have at least a look at some of the fantastic products they have. And when you support Canada Nano Silver, you are supporting the Shadow at Night live stream. Hello, everybody who is watching on all the platforms tonight, like Ken from Australia, who's watching on Facebook. David is watching on YouTube. Now, this is a very interesting comment. David says, this time last year, you're absolutely correct, David, by the way. Rustad was our hope, a conservative hero in BC. And 1 year later, he's a zero. Party tanking in the polls. He almost won and then didn't. And then you go on to say, one BC is our only hope, but they only have 2 or 3 members currently in the legislature. You're absolutely right about that. But after today, I can imagine many, many more members, MLAs, sitting MLAs who are members of the Conservative Party, leaving the party altogether to sit as independents like Jordan Keeley does, or joining one BC, and I'll show you why in just a second. But this is the big story today, and I want you to think about this as well for the province that you live in that doesn't really have a Conservative Party, even if they call themselves conservative, like Manitoba, like Ontario, like Nova Scotia, like, turns out, Newfoundland and Labrador, but we'll get to that. Let's check out this story here. From Kelowna Capital News, BC Conservative Committee calls on John Rustad to resign. The BC Conservative Committee. A letter from 7 members of the BC Conservative Party Management Committee is calling on John Rustad to resign. It says the party has been engulfed in an unprecedented level of turmoil since the last provincial election in 2024. As a leader, this is what they wrote in their letter, it's your responsibility to unite the party around a common vision and to lead us forward with purpose and clarity. This letter obtained by Black Press Media today. As evidenced by sagging poll numbers, memberships, fundraising, a shrinking caucus and staff, philosophically inconsistent policy, low morale, and perhaps most importantly, a lack of enthusiasm and tepid endorsement from our membership, your leadership has ceased to serve that purpose. That's about as scathing as you can get in politics without cursing. Rustad acknowledged receiving the letter, but told reporters he has no intention of quitting. Oh, my God. He's one of those guys. This is an internal matter within the party, and I plan to have an opportunity to speak with the management committee. Other than that, I won't be making any further comment, Rustad said. I am not going to be resigning. So he's going to watch as the party crumbles around him, because I predict that's what's about to happen. The letter is signed by 7 out of 8 members of the Conservative Party board, credits Rustad with building the party, but says it's time to move on. John, your efforts have been instrumental to putting the party on its feet and into the position of being the largest opposition in provincial history. We acknowledge and thank you for your service. It's now time for a next chapter to take our shared vision of a conservative government in BC across the finish line. Most of the letter's signatories were part of Rustad's preferred slate of candidates elected to the committee during the party's annual general meeting this past March, which apparently was a gong show. The list includes Aisha Esty, Wesley Graham, Ndeli Massey, Troy Lanigan, Sasha Peter, Andre Roberge, and Mauro Francis. The only board member who didn't sign the letter is Pavneet Singh, a restaurateur and former BC United candidate in the Kelowna Lake Country Coldstream riding, a riding that's now held by Tara Armstrong, who's a member of 1BC. Go figure. The BC Conservative Party won 45 seats in October of last year, but 5 members have quit or been asked to leave the caucus since. The latest is Amelia Boltby. We talked about her last night. She left this week blaming Rustad's leadership or lack thereof for her departure. She said those people are John's people that he handpicked and put forward on a slate at the AGM not that long ago, in March. Boltby said, so for them to be asking him to step down after just being elected as his handpicked board, I think is absolutely stunning. Boltby says she hopes to return to the party if Rustad quits. I hope that John takes a moment to reflect and to step down. Of course he won't. He won't. And 1BC is waiting for these candidates to come over to them. And you've seen me play some clips of Dallas Brody on the show before. I'm going to play you a clip of Tara Armstrong, the only other sitting member of 1BC in the legislature right now. So this is 1BC's response to the BC Conservative Board calling for John Rustad to resign. Today, the BC Conservative Board of Directors asked John Rustad to resign. You know, Carrie Simpson told me months ago that this party was going to implode upon itself. And I went, interesting. That woman is so inside, she knows everything. Anyway, Dallas goes on to say, that's an acknowledgement of 1BC's ascendance. Their supporters are flowing into 1BC's ranks from Rustad's broken vessel. Swapping out Rustad won't fix their mess. Their party is a lost cause. Their caucus is filled with radical MLAs who belong in the NDP. Their House leader, Alia Warbus, endorses decolonization and the Cowichan Aboriginal title, which surrenders private property to Indigenous tribes. When the NDP proposed a motion condemning Christians earlier this month, their entire caucus literally ran out of the legislative chamber. The majority of their MLAs even handed over their personal phones to be searched by Rustad's loyalists. What? If the conservative MLAs won't stand up for their own privacy, then they won't stand up for you either. Our movement is filled with people who are courageous and principled. 1BC is for all British Columbians. Strong leaders from across BC are joining our ranks to defend our culture and rebuild a prosperous economy. We'll keep fighting so that every British Columbian has a better future. Dallas Brody, leader of 1BC. This is their website right here. 1BC. That's the number 1BC.ca. The number 1BC.ca. And they've got all of their priorities there: prosperity, Indigenous, immigration. The MLAs, again, only 2. Dallas Brody, right here. And the other one is Tara Armstrong. She's right here. I expect they're going to have more very, very soon. This is Tara Armstrong in legislature not so long ago. She sits right next to Dallas Brody in the chamber there. And listen to what she's talking about, because we don't hear this hardly ever from any Canadian politician elected to any house across the country.
Treated British Columbians like guinea pigs, forcing experimental procedures on them without their consent. Let's face it, the numbers don't lie. All 7 doctors in the obstetrics department in Kamloops are gone. The pediatrics unit in Kelowna, gone. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, Mr. Speaker. The devastation here is far and wide. So if the Health Minister and the Premier is expecting an applause for the careers wrecked and the lives upended by these unscientific mandates, well, they won't be getting that from me. I stand in this House for the voice of those who don't have a voice here, the thousands of healthcare workers this government cast aside. Here's one other question that deserves an answer. Maybe I can get it. Will the Premier himself apologize to the healthcare workers whose lives were derailed by this government's punitive COVID policies?
Wow. Wow. That's amazing to hear in this country. We have not heard any elected officials talking about that anywhere. Can you think of any? Can you think of one who has even brought this up at all? Privately, even? There she is. Tara Armstrong, MLA for Kelowna, talking about BC's response to COVID-19 and all of the lives that were destroyed. That is absolutely outstanding. Amazing. If you live in BC, in the next election, that's the party to vote for. I think they're going to be getting a lot stronger very quickly, like in the next couple of weeks, because the Conservative Party is falling to pieces. And I certainly hope in other provinces, and I know there's something going on in Nova Scotia, but I'm certainly hoping in other provinces, people start waking up and realizing, man, this guy calls himself a conservative, but he's not. He's not a conservative. I posted a reel today on Instagram talking about Pierre Poilievre and how he's being pushed hard by the left-wing conservatives in Toronto, the GTA area. You got to be soft. You got to soften your rhetoric. You got to be nice. Your likability is way down. You're never going to get elected. It's my opinion, plain and simple, that the conservatives will never get elected if they're liberal light. If the Conservative Party of Canada ever wants to be winning an election ever again in this country, they got to be conservative. And they got to start speaking out, and without fear of the media. Pierre Poilievre spoke to Northern Perspective the other day. He said the RCMP leadership during the Trudeau era was corrupt. They were covering up for liberal scandals left, right, and center. You've seen me talk about that. He was addressed by the media today on this, and here's what he said.
Former Prime Minister should be in jail.
That's not what I said.
Well,
that's not
what
what
I
said.
heard. What did you say
That's not
then?
what I said.
Repeat what you said.
Sure, I'll tell you what I said. I was asked about the scandals of the last 10 years of the Liberal government, and what would I do if such scandals and corruption were to happen when I become Prime Minister? And I said I would have zero tolerance for corruption. Nobody is above the law. So if I could, in certain cases, I think there were scandals in the Liberal government that would be appropriately punished in that way. You think of the Green Slush Fund, where individuals were appointed to a board to manage public funds. And what did they do with it? They gave it to themselves. To me, that is a crime for which they should have been held responsible. People have got to be held responsible for corruption. And if you look at my remarks, that's what I said. We will hold people accountable for corruption.
Okay. All right. Just so you're aware, when he's Prime Minister, he will hold people accountable for corruption. Gotcha, Pierre. The Liberals are doing everything they can to deflect away from their upcoming budget November the 4th. And all they're doing for the last couple of days is demanding that Pierre Poilievre apologize. He hasn't apologized. He did walk back his remarks a little bit, but he hasn't apologized, which is good. Pierre, don't apologize. Do not apologize ever to the left. It doesn't matter if you apologize. They will never let it go. Doesn't matter. Here's Gary Alphabet, the Minister of Public Safety.
The opposition has made some irresponsible statements relating to the RCMP. As you're aware, Mr. Speaker, the RCMP play an integral role in the safety and security of Canadians. It's an independent organization that abides by the rule of law. For the Leader of the Opposition to impinge the integrity of the RCMP is beyond the seat that he holds, Mr. Speaker, and I demand that he unequivocally retract those statements and seek an apology from the RCMP, the men and women that serve this country, Mr. Speaker.
There he is, Gun Grab Gary, talking about how Pierre Poilievre needs to apologize because the RCMP is absolutely above the standards that we even expect them to be above or at. No, they're not. They didn't investigate Justin Trudeau, not for anything, not for the WE scandal, not for the Aga Khan scandal, not for the SNC Lavalin scandal, not for anything. They inquired. They didn't investigate. They got shut down because of cabinet confidence, but they never took it any further. I wonder if you went to court, now understanding the courts are corrupted as well, in my opinion. I have to say, in my opinion, or allegedly. But I wonder if they got a fair judge in the courts. Would, in a criminal investigation, the excuse of cabinet confidence hold? I don't think it's ever been tested. Just like, how much power does the prime minister have? Does the prime minister have the power to prorogue parliament over nothing because he's got a rash? I've got a rash. We're going to put parliament on hold for 2 or 3 months. Or whatever his reason. That case is still before the courts as well. Anyway, on left wing, now watch this shoddy questioning by Vashi Capellos here. She tries to nail Andrew Scheer, because the left-wing corporate media just will not leave this alone. Have a look.
Leader of your party made some comments in a podcast that I want to get your take on, because it's actually about policing. The podcast, I believe, was taped October 3rd, posted yesterday. He was referencing the RCMP's decision not to pursue criminal charges against Justin Trudeau or other people in the government over their involvement in the SNC scandal. Mr. Poilievre characterized the leadership of the RCMP as, quote, despicable when it comes to enforcing laws against the Liberal government, and accused them of covering up for Trudeau. Do you have proof of that?
Did you hear the taped audio between the Liberal Prime Minister's clerk of the Privy Council and former Justice Minister Jody Wilson-Raybould? Because I heard that audio recording, and I heard explicit and implicit threats to a justice minister to grant, if she did not grant, a special deal to SNC-Lavalin.
That's not what I asked, Mr. Scheer. You have a view that a crime was committed. The accusation from Mr. Poilievre, who in a matter of weeks or months could run an election and be prime minister, is that the RCMP leadership covered up for the prime minister. That's a very direct accusation about the leadership of our national police force. Do you have evidence of it?
Well, as I just pointed out, there's direct evidence of an attempt by the prime minister.
Do you have evidence of it? This is a woman who covered all of Justin Trudeau's scandals, every single one of them. She was on the air the whole time. She's seen the evidence for herself. She knows. So what kind of idiotic question is that to ask?
A sitting Liberal Prime Minister to interfere with the Attorney General's carrying out of her duties. That audio was released. I listened to it on I believe you probably have too. And that is what I would point to. That when the RCMP says, oh, there's no evidence of interference, it's like, well, sorry, what more do you need?
No, but the RCMP did.
She admits, yeah, I heard it 1,000 times. So why are you asking such a boneheaded question, Vashi? Honest to God, here.
Choose to explore that evidence, and they have testified to the fact. They chose not to proceed to the point where public statements. Wait a second. Public statements on record saying that they were not able to obtain certain cabinet confidences. So why is that a cover-up? Isn't that the fault of cabinet at the time or the government at the time? Shouldn't your ire be directed at the political level and not at calling the leadership of the RCMP despicable and covering up for a prime minister?
Well, I absolutely believe that the Liberals acted despicably in this,
I would just continue to the RCMP commissioners.
Vashi, wow, I understand that she's probably trying to be fair to all sides here. But again, she covered all of these scandals. She knows how hard the Conservatives went on the Liberals through all of them. And now she's saying maybe you should direct your ire at the Liberals and not the RCMP, who were complicit in this by not going hard enough to get the evidence required? That's just stupid. Very bad journalism.
Mr. Poilievre accused.
I don't think you can make the accusation that I or my leader, Pierre Poilievre, we're not holding the Liberals accountable for their role in this as well. I mean, we absolutely attempted to prosecute both the SNC-Lavalin scandal, the Green Slush Fund scandal. We tried to get those documents to the RCMP. We tried to get the RCMP to take action and elevate this to a level where these crimes would actually be prosecuted. That's not what happened. So I think my leader has a strong case to make when he calls this out, and we certainly believe that the leadership of the RCMP should act independently and should not be afraid to hold politicians accountable.
He said today, the commissioner of the RCMP, that he doesn't answer to any politician, that he isn't beholden to anyone. Do you not believe him?
Well, I just continue to point out that when you have liberal politicians attempting to interfere in an independent court case, accepting illegal gifts, funneling money through liberal board members in the Green Slush Fund, where the liberals split their friends and political donors onto a board to allocate taxpayers' money, and they allocated that taxpayers' money. They gave it to themselves. They gave it to their own companies, and still. We haven't seen criminal prosecutions on that. We haven't seen. We saw the RCMP completely abandoned the SNC-Lavalin affair when there was an audio of the Prime Minister's right-hand man, Michael Wernick, trying to pressure Jody Wilson-Raybould into making a decision she did not believe was just. And so I think I've laid out a very compelling case that would certainly run counter to the quote you might have from the RCMP.
Another thing. She said, he said today, the commissioner of the RCMP, Michael Duhem, he said today that he is independent of government and he operates on his own. Now, if she's any kind of journalist, she knows that is absolutely not true, and she would call him out on that. All you have to do, this is on Wikipedia, for goodness sakes. You don't even have to dig that deep. The commissioner of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police is the professional head of the RCMP. The commissioner exercises control and management of the RCMP under the direction of the Minister of Public Safety. That means the commissioner of the RCMP is answerable to the Minister of Public Safety. Who is the Minister of Public Safety answerable to? The Prime Minister of Canada. That's what you get when you watch the left-wing corporate media. Please share this segment of the show with your left-wing corporate media watching friends and family. I implore you. CBC is on trial again. They've been questioned in commissions in Parliament for the last couple of days. This is Conservative MP Rachel Thomas talking to the CEO yesterday.
There'd be no bias at the CBC.
Well, I would say that that's not our policy. That's not our practice. I'm not oblivious to the fact that some people claim there is bias, but that's not how we work.
Your perception. What's your perception? You're the head of the organization. What's your perception?
My perception is that we are working very hard to try and bring accurate, factual-based news and information to Canadians every day.
So no bias at the CBC according to you?
No bias according to me.
No bias according to me. Okay. What does Marianne Cloak think of that? Marianne Cloak, a longtime CBC reporter. Here she is a couple of years ago at the National Citizens Inquiry.
We betrayed the public. We broke their trust. And we had been riding on a reputation of excellence for years. And now we were quickly shutting down one side of the debate. And how were we doing that? We branded the doctors and the experts the CBC chose that we used in our stories. We branded them as competent and trustworthy. And those who questioned and challenged the narrative were portrayed as dangerous and spreading disinformation. And that was regardless of what their specialty was, what their background was, and what their experience was. And I just also want to sort of give you a window into how this affected me personally. As a veteran journalist, I had solid contacts in the community. I had people calling me with stories. So I was seeing and I was hearing and I was absorbing all their stories of suffering and pain, and they were sharing them with me, and these stories weren't being told. Some of those were from the vaccine injured. Some were from people who had lost their job because of their vaccination status. Those whose families had been blown apart and they'd been ostracized. University students who were depressed over repeated lockdowns and mandates, and parents who were calling me that were agonizing on whether they should vaccinate their child or not. So all these stories were sitting inside of me. They were left with me, and I felt the crushing burden and the weight of their truth not being given a voice. And it affected my well-being because these people trusted me, and I felt I had failed them and I had let them down. It was like I had failed these people as a journalist to give voice to their truth. So I had witnessed in a very short time the collapse of journalism, news gathering, investigative reporting, and the way I saw it is that we were in fact pushing propaganda. And to define propaganda, it's information, ideas, opinions, or images that give one part of an argument, which are broadcast, published, in order to influence a person's opinion. And mental health workers have their own definition of propaganda as manipulative persuasion in the service of an agenda.
Here's former CBC reporter Rodney Palmer.
He has betrayed Canada and betrayed Canadians by resting on the laurels of decades of hard-fought journalists who did their work and entire careers of investigative journalism, and they're using that to trick us. So they morphed into propaganda in a moment of exception. The beginning of COVID, we were all on board with let's all go hide and stay home because we're afraid. But the period of exception is over. You could forgive them for allowing themselves to be an apparatus of the public health because it existed. It was a broadcast system that we could send messages to on a daily basis. And in a moment of exception, you could say, okay, we're going to let the CBC be the public health system right now. But the emergency's over and the exception still exists. So how we get out of this, I'm not sure. But there would have to be a wholesale redesign of the CBC because I think that it would be extremely difficult for the number of people in that organization to admit to themselves as they go to sleep at night that they cause deaths by misinforming people and disinforming people. It's a very tough thing to get out of.
That's why they all need to be fired. And not replaced by the same kind of people. Travis Donraj is a recent CBC firing, or is he? Because he left the network claiming that he wasn't able to do the things he wanted to do. CBC said, no, you still work here. I don't think Travis knows exactly what his status is, at least on paper, at the CBC, but he's got a new podcast, and he had Pierre Poilievre on a couple of weeks ago, and they talked about CBC bias too.
That outlets lean one way or the other?
Yes, they do. And they all know that, and you know that.
I mean, I do know that. But I mean,
you work for CBC, am I wrong?
Well, I did. Apparently, I still do. I haven't read the paper to see if I'm still employed or not. But
probably won't be after this interview.
After this airs, probably not. But I mean, part of the reason we did the show is to push past kind of gatekeeping. I did live it at CBC. I was told to keep quiet, not rock the boat. I mean, I was not even able to request an interview with you.
Wow.
I wanted to have you on my show. I was not able to do that. But what's your take on the state of our public broadcaster right now?
I think, it's as you describe it. They have an ideological objective, and they carry it out every day.
Okay, so that whole segment was designed for you to be able to say, hey, Bob, Uncle Bob, who watches the CBC, maybe you should think again before you take them seriously as your news source, or CTV, or Global, any of them. Because they're all lying to you by omission or otherwise. They are, in fact, giving you only one side of a multifaceted story. Any of them. And they also control the narrative as well. They have been controlling the narrative regarding this whole RCMP thing. Right? I mean, they took over that narrative. They should have been saying, hey, maybe he's got a point. Maybe the RCMP was in cahoots with the Liberal Party. Maybe there was some corruption going on there. But instead, they decided to attack Pierre Poilievre for his remarks and not look into the validity of his comments. So what else has been going on? Well, here's Conservative MP Cheryl Gallant. I found this one very interesting.
As Canadians consume the contrails left by Carney's latest jet over to Europe, Canada Post exhaled its final breath. You see, there was still one way for Canadians to communicate with each other with an element of privacy: the mail. Carney's "now you see it, now you don't" magic trick with the carbon tax has even caught up with Canada Post. The post office can't even afford to use airmail in Canada. The cost of fuel, let alone the conversion of delivery vehicles to electric, is so high they can't deliver the mail every day. The banks and credit card companies will love this. It gives them an excuse to cut the cost of printing and mailing altogether. The more you do online, the more information about you that the government and malicious actors can learn about you. Losing Canada Post isn't just about convenience. It's about losing access to information the government doesn't want you to know about. It's about losing what's left of our privacy. It's about losing your freedom.
Are they systemically getting rid of Canada Post for that very reason? You see, there's a lot of people out there who go, oh, the Conservative Party, they're corrupt, they're globalists, just like the Liberals are. And yeah, I do think you have a point, but I have said in the past here, and I'm not saying that the Conservative Party, if they won power, would somehow turn things around magically. There's a lot of things I disagree with that they represent. So don't get me wrong. But I do believe that there are some MPs in that party who speak the truth, like Cheryl Gallant there. What if she's got a point? What if getting rid of Canada Post means, well, I guess we just got to put more and more and more of our private information online so they can see it? I find that to be a very interesting take. What else didn't the left-wing corporate media cover this week? Oh, look at this. This is right from the website, the Government of Canada website. Minister Valdez announces 189 million of our tax dollars invested to help Black entrepreneurs start up, scale up, and build Canada's economy. Only Black entrepreneurs. Growing an inclusive economy is essential to building Canada strong. When Black entrepreneurs have the tools to start and grow companies, they create jobs, drive innovation, and strengthen local communities. White people don't do that. Just so you know, white people will run that business right into the ground. And the same with Asians, apparently. Today, the Honorable Rishi Valdez, Minister of Women and Gender Equality and Secretary of State, Small Business and Tourism, kicked off Small Business Week by announcing a renewed investment of $189 million in the Black Entrepreneurship Program, or BEP. This funding will keep capital flowing, expand advisory supports, and deepen research so more Black-owned businesses can start up, scale up, and succeed. My friends, that is racist. That is absolutely racist. That program should not be allowed to exist by our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, by any number of human rights codes. That's absolutely ludicrous. And it's $189 million. Think about the taxes you've paid. Sit down one day. Here's an exercise for you. Sit down one day and think about all of just the federal taxes that you have paid over your lifetime. Add it all up. You would probably have to multiply that number by 200 to come up with the number they're investing in Black-only businesses. This year alone, isn't that amazing? And we wonder why there could be a deficit somewhere around $92 billion when that budget comes out November the 4th. I've got another theory as well. This is going to be interesting. This budget could trigger an election. Now, by then, if there is an election, let's say Poilievre wins, by then, all of Carney's little budget amendments will be in place. All of his little programs will be in place. Contract side can't renege on them. Poilievre will have to follow through on those. And then Carney sails off into the sunset to enjoy billions and billions of dollars he created for himself through these investments. And people in Canada, they're happy now because they've got They've got a conservative government, one that's finally going to settle things down and put us on the right path. And Alberta doesn't separate because we have a conservative government. It's all part of a play, man. That's what I predict could happen. It's one of the options available to them. If this budget doesn't pass, and there is another election, because it's a matter of confidence. Every budget presented is a matter of confidence. If it doesn't pass, that means the government falls. If there's an election and Carney wins again, Liberals get a majority this time, let's say, Alberta's out, they're gone. It's over. And they don't want that because Alberta is their cash cow. Has been since they joined Confederation back in, 1905, I think? So what else is going on that the left-wing corporate media is not telling us about? Well, Michelle Rempel was in Immigration Committee today, talking to the Deputy Minister of Immigration about how many people are actually here already. Have a look.
The 2025 target and last year's levels plan for temporary residents total.
So for the temporary residents total, Madam Chair, the overall target was 673,650.
How many how many permits have been issued as of the end of August of this year?
So as of August of this year, I can actually get you the information very quickly here.
I have 773,000, is that right?
Pardon me?
I have 773,000, is that right?
773,000. We have three. If I'm looking at total of the work permits issued, if that is the question.
It's all so the 600.
So he doesn't know what the hell's going on with all of the people who are here, whether it's student visas, whether it's temporary foreign workers. I don't know. Michelle's got all the answers in her hand. And this guy's having trouble, struggling, answer to the questions. So when things get a little tougher on him, watch what happens.
73,000 that you had? What is the congruent number that has been issued to date? I have 773,000. It was data that you posted about 48 hours ago or so.
I don't have that number, ma'am. I do, Madam Chair, have like a split of that, which is a little different from what is the number.
So what I have from your website on data that you just posted is 773,000 temporary permits. So we're not even, we're about halfway through the year over, and you have already exceeded the levels plan temporary permit issued by 100,000. Is that correct?
So I think what we have to clarify, Madam Chair, is that the folks who are here, they already are into the system. Either they are employed or they have the work permit, which they will be, or they are students. So there's a combination of many.
There's still several 100,000 permits that are new permits that are being issued, correct? Across the different temporary resident streams?
We do have quite a bit of reduction, Madam Chair, in terms.
No. We're not talking about reductions. I'm saying you're still adding several 100,000 people to the system. Is that correct?
We are adding some to it, but
Yes,
not
thank you.
a huge lot.
Of order.
The witness was trying to answer and he was stopped mid-sentence. If we could get full answers, the questions have been full, certainly, but if we can let witnesses complete their answer, that would be, I think, helpful for testimony purposes.
On that point.
Oh, yeah, this is going to get worse, too, as the Liberals start filibustering here. And point of order.
Before you rule, Madam Chair. I know that my colleagues in the Liberal Party don't like my questions because they speak to the fact that the Liberal government is exceeding temporary foreign work permits to the extent that Canadian students don't have jobs. And so me asking why aren't they betting on Canadians is material, and with the time that I would have left, I would like the Deputy Minister to clarify why they are still issuing temporary foreign work permits.
Thank you, Ms. Rempel-Gardner. Hold on. Okay, hold on a second. So on both sides, they're not point of orders. I will give 10 seconds or 12 seconds for Mr. Kochar to respond, and then that's time.
Point of personal privilege. I don't know what the rules say about that.
Yes, Mr. Zuberi.
Thank you. I just heard some imputation about what Liberal members think or don't think. I personally never expressed myself. I don't know if that was...
That's debate.
And I believe I have...
That's not a point of privilege or point of order.
So may I actually...
Well, it was an imputation on me as a Liberal member.
Okay,
Can I actually raise a point of order on that question? Madam Chair, every meeting when I ask questions, tough questions to officials on the Liberal government's failures on the immigration policy, my colleagues on the Liberal Party interrupt me. Every time.
That is not a point of order.
It is.
And you know it. We're going to give another 10
It's
seconds.
on decorum. It is actually on decorum. So
Ms.
my Liberal
Rempel-Garner,
colleagues continually
Ms.
interrupt me.
Rempel.
It's a joke. Point of order, point of order. I'm a Liberal member, and that she was saying what I thought. And what? That's absolutely ridiculous. Anything they can do to interrupt the momentum of somebody who's getting somewhere during a questioning session with an incompetent bureaucrat. Wow. Okay, so from unpublished, here's a story I found interesting. You can also find this in the National Post. New report card gives Liberal government a D in fiscal responsibility. I would say F, but that's just me. So with the budget just a couple of weeks away, the Liberal government has received a lousy report card from a leading think tank for poor fiscal accountability. In a report to be released tomorrow, the federal government received a D grade in fiscal accountability from the C.D. Howe Institution because Ottawa lost hefty marks for lateness and lack of transparency. The government's lateness is a result of not yet producing a budget for this fiscal year, even though it's already half over. Its opaqueness includes burying key numbers of hundreds of pages deep in its budget, inconsistent accounting, and delayed financial statements. In receiving its worst grade over the last 5 years in the Institute's annual report card on this subject, how do you get a worse grade than Justin Trudeau? Ottawa also lost points for failing to present consolidated expenses and posting a large gap between projected and actual results. To make matters worse, the think tank's report says the federal government is on track to score even worse with an F for its fiscal 25-26 performance. The federal government's announcement of a budget in November of 2025 means it's effectively produced no budget for this year, the report says. But Ottawa wasn't the only government that's got some work to do, the C.D. Howe Institute says, in making the grade, the Fiscal Accountability Report Card for Canada's senior governments 2025. Manitoba and the Northwest Territories both got D minus. Yeah, D. No surprise there. Alberta, on the other hand, was seen as the country's star pupil, landing an A+ for presenting numbers consistent with public sector accounting standards in all documents, releasing its public accounts within 90 days of the end of the fiscal year and providing regular updates during the year. Quebec got a B+, PEI, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Saskatchewan, BC, Yukon, and Nunavut also got Bs. Ontario got a B-, Newfoundland and Labrador got a C. Oh, hey, you know what? There's a video that I wanted to play for you guys the other night, but it got lost. And I found it again. Regarding Newfoundland and Labrador's election last week, where a so-called conservative government won it. Of course, I'll never be able to find it now, but there's so many videos in here. But anyway, the kid that did it, I'm going to say this kid is maybe 18 or 19 years old. You may have seen him on Rebel News once or twice. I forget his name. But he did a little digging into this new progressive conservative government in Newfoundland and Labrador. And it turns out they support the SOGI in the schools, and they support all of the trans nonsense and the climate change BS and all of that stuff. So again, we're looking at a situation where a conservative calls him or herself a conservative, but is not. So it's time for all of these traditional parties to go. And it's time for new common sense parties to step up. Or independents to step up. It doesn't matter. Last night, I told you that the new mayor-elect of Calgary was one of us. I did a little research on him and thought, wow, man, this guy stood up during COVID. Good. Excellent. He was the only councillor to vote against certain woke things. Thought that was great. And then what I read today in comments was, no, Shadow, you're wrong. He's actually Nenshi's best friend. And I went, what? I was surprised by that. I was very surprised by that. So we find out today, Sonia Sharp, she's the one who came in second, has requested a recount in Calgary's razor-thin mayoral race. There she is there. Narrow loss to Jeremy Farkas in the election by 0.16%, 585 votes. Sharp, who led the community's first party and was endorsed by the Calgary Police Association, made the announcement yesterday afternoon on X. She says, thank you to every Calgarian who voted with a margin of just 585 votes. I'll be requesting a recount to ensure every ballot is properly counted. Win or lose, I'm grateful for the opportunity and will fully accept the outcome because every voice matters. She goes on to say that she's not going to be commenting on the matter any further until the recount is officially over with. According to the current numbers that we have, Farkas got 91,071 votes. Sharp got 90,488. And Jody Gondek, the previous mayor, was way down the list, finishing third or fourth. So apparently Sonia Sharp was the one that we should have been rooting for to win because she represents everything we believe, like common sense. And Jeremy Farkas doesn't, even though. But here's my thing. How can you stand against something so vociferously as to publicly protest about it and to be one of the only councillors to vote against it, and then suddenly change your mind? Your very values. How do you change your personal values that much? That doesn't make any sense to me. Or he's hiding his real feelings and thoughts just to be successful in politics. That will manifest in any and all kind of physical ailment because the mind and the body are connected. Okay, one of the last things tonight. This is going to hit some of you pretty hard, so I'm going to give an advisory before I play this. Kim Iverson was talking about Virginia Giuffre's new book that was released yesterday or today. Of course, Virginia Giuffre died of a suicide back in the spring after being hit by a car. And we thought she was going to die when she got hit by that car. She was in hospital. She made a miraculous recovery 3 weeks later, only to die by suicide. What? Anyway, she had written the book. And she wanted to make sure that it came out, and it did. So Kim Iverson is going to tell us some things about it. And again, you may find some of these things disturbing. Let's have a look.
Victim Virginia Giuffre's new book has just dropped today, and it is atrocious, the details that she has in this book. Virginia Giuffre passed away in April of a suicide, supposed suicide, maybe an actual suicide. It's unclear. However, her new book, Nobody's Girl, dropped today. She had insisted before her death that this book came out no matter what happens to her. She wanted this book published. It is now published, and the details in it are disgusting. She points at many very powerful people. She doesn't name very many names. I mean, in the book, she does name Prince Andrew, but there's others that she just alludes to. She calls them Billionaire 1, Billionaire 2, Billionaire 3, Prime Minister 1, a sadistic prime minister, soon to be governor of a Western U.S. state, and a former U.S. senator. These are the things that these are the titles that she gave in the book, probably to protect the publisher, because she'd already publicly said who these people were in her testimonies and in her various different interviews. But in the book, she doesn't actually name those names. But different new details have come out in this book, and it is absolutely disgusting. I think just once again showing why so many people are demanding Epstein files. We want to know who these powerful people were, what kind of blackmail is on them, how compromised are they, and what are they, and what sort of decisions did they make on behalf of American citizens using taxpayer dollars because they themselves were actually blackmailed. This is the New York Post. They came out with Virginia Giuffre's beaten raped by well-known prime minister in an attack that broke Epstein's spell, her memoir reveals. This is the story from New York Post. Prominent Jeffrey Epstein victim Virginia Roberts Giuffre was brutally bloodied, beaten, and raped by a well-known prime minister in a series of savage...
You can see Kim is visibly upset as she reads this here. She's making a lot of mistakes as she's going through the script. She's very disturbed. Let's continue.
Encounters that finally helped the teenager break free from the sex trafficker's spell. In her posthumous memoir, Nobody's Girl, a memoir of surviving abuse and fighting for justice, Giuffre recalls begging Epstein to step in after the unnamed politician forced her to beg for her life. But the pedophile coldly told her it was simply part of her job. She says, after the attack, I couldn't stay a fool. Having been treated so brutally and then seeing Epstein's callous reaction to how terrorized I felt, I had to accept that Epstein meted out praise merely as a manipulation to keep me subservient. So who is she talking about? Well, we have some guesses based on some of the various different interviews and her testimony that she's done. When she talks about the sadistic prime minister, Giuffre describes an unnamed prime minister who raped her violently, choked her unconscious, laughing as she bled. She wrote that this man met her on Epstein's private island around 2002, and that Epstein later dismissed her pleas not to be sent back, telling her, "You'll get that sometimes." So when she said, "I was abused," and he was really violent, he's like, "You'll get that sometimes." Giuffre never revealed the leader's nationality, explaining that she feared retaliation. No major outlet has definitively identified him. The reporting acknowledges speculation linking the description to an unnamed world leader in Epstein's circle. And that unnamed leader is, they believe that this is Ehud Barak, the former prime minister of Israel. And at the time, he was the prime minister when he was doing this. That is the allegation that people are pointing at. They're saying that it looks like it was actually him. Let me see if I can find the notes on this specifically. He was the prime minister of Israel from 1999 and defense minister from 1999 to 2001. Then he was the defense minister from 2007 to 2013. And yeah, they're saying that this is who they believe. They believe that the prime minister, Giuffre, refers to a well-known prime minister, also described as a former prime minister or former minister in reviews, who subjected her to one of the most brutal encounters in 2002 on Epstein's private island and aboard his plane. She details sadistic abuse, including repeated choking until she lost consciousness, beating that left her bloodied from her mouth, vagina, and anus, and rape that caused days of pain in breathing and swallowing. He reportedly laughed at her suffering, derived pleasure from her begging him to stop, and raped her more savagely than anyone had before.
These people are sick and twisted and privileged beyond all of our imaginations. Look at us as ants and want complete control of the world. That's what we're fighting. So how do we fight back? We build our own societies. We do not let them interfere in any way, shape, or form. Would you suggest that Alberta's separation, independence, is building on a large scale a parallel society? I certainly would. We're going to discuss that tonight in the extension on shadowdavis.com. If you're not an all-access member, become one on the website. Like it's spelled at the bottom of the screen, shadowdavis.com. And then make sure you become a member in the Shadow at Night community on Telegram. If you can't find it, send me a message on Facebook or send me an email, shadowdavis@gmail.com, and I will send you a link so you can join the Telegram group. There are 700 members back there, and they're amazing. One last thing before we wrap up the show tonight. I found this to be very interesting. Not because of the story, but because of the first comment beneath it. This is on X. mRNA COVID vaccines double survival in lung and skin cancer immunotherapy. Now, when I saw this, I started laughing. I went, can you even believe that they're still trying to sell this nonsense? A Nature study from MD Anderson Cancer Center analyzed 884 non-small cell lung cancer patients and 210 metastatic melanoma patients treated between 2015 and 2023. Finding that mRNA COVID-19 vaccination within 100 days of starting immune checkpoint inhibitors doubled median survival to 37.3 months in lung cancer and raised 3-year survival to 68% in melanoma. Preclinical mouse models confirm the vaccines activate type 1 interferons and elevate PD-L1 expression, enhancing immune response against tumors. Experts view the observational results as promising for immunotherapy's 20 to 30% success rate, but prospective trials are needed to verify causality. So let's go down here and see. Oh, look, Dr. William Mackis, a cancer expert, says, this is the funniest bullshit I've seen in years. Every new published paper confirms that these things, I'm not going to say, cause cancer, so naturally CTV says the opposite. That is it for the show tonight, you guys. I love you all. I appreciate you all, and I will catch you again tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Central for another episode. All Access Nighthawks, I'll see you on the website in 2 minutes.